Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. I heard a story one time of somebody comparing relationships to entering into, crawling into a boat together. This message was specifically about marriage, but I think we can consider any of our relationships. And basically, when you enter into a friendship, when you consider your family, or especially a spouse, when you enter into that relationship, you climb into a rowboat together. The unique thing about a rowboat is that it has oars, right? And so each person in that relationship has their own oar. And in a relationship, relationships work best if each of you are using your oar the same, right? So if one person is rowing and the other is not, then the boat just kind of does circles, right? And so in the context of marriage, I usually encourage couples to think about when you climb into this boat together, you essentially are saying, I'm going to do my part. And this boat represents our whole relationship. And so whatever I do to you, whatever I do to this relationship, to the boat, it actually affects me. And so the goal of once you climb into this boat is to try to sail this boat down the river, right? Let's say there's some rapids and some rocks and things. The goal is to sail it as smooth as possible, but fully realizing you're going to hit some tough times, so know that you might bump up against some rocks and whatnot. But those are the points where you get to figure it out together, and you continue to stay in the boat together. And so whatever happens in that boat, basically, if one of you is rowing and the other is rowing, let's say in one of my relationships, I'm the person who does all the communicating. Like, I'm the one that reaches out and contacts and all that sort of stuff. But this other person, one of my friends, is super thoughtful. So sometimes I'll get a card, or they make sure when something's going on in my life that they stop by. But I'm the one that maybe does it more regularly in terms of phone calls or texts or things like that, right? So we each have our roles in the relationship. And if I get frustrated because they aren't texting or calling, then I could easily just pull my oar in and sit there, right? But if you're on the shores and you're watching this, you see and you know that essentially you're just going in circles and you're not moving your relationship forward. You're not doing what the relationship was intended to do. And especially in marriages, I see it all the time, and I know I've done it, man. If there's people on the shore and they watch me in my relationship, there are times where I literally stand up in the boat and I shoot a shotgun into the bottom of it. I mean, there are times where I literally I make poor decisions and I approach conversations in a way that I'm literally shooting holes in my own boat, and I think that I'm hurting the other person. So as we deal with conflict in our relationships, or we consider our relationships, I just want to consider one verse. I want you to think about this one verse. It's Philippians 2, 3 through 5. Oftentimes I use this with marriages. It's not a verse written about marriage, but it can apply to relationships, friendships, families, and marriages. It basically says to do nothing out of selfish ambition. Instead, consider others better than yourselves. And make those decisions, right? Like at this point, we're not looking only to our own interests. We're looking to the interests of others. And so every time it says others or self, you could put spouse, you could put parent, you could put child. Do nothing out of selfish ambition, but instead consider your spouse's needs greater than yourself. Consider nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but instead consider your mom's needs and interests better than yourselves. And what if you enter into the boat, right? Your mom and your relationship, or you and your spouse's relationship, you're in the same boat. If you're both doing that, then this relationship continues to move forward in a way that serves and honors God, right? We climb into that boat together. And if you're not sure you want to get into that boat with a relationship, if you're not sure you're going to man or woman your oar, right, then you don't have a relationship. And I think it's also fair to assume that there are times in this analogy where maybe one of us isn't as able to row. Maybe we need to grab. There's times where, because we're looking to the interests of others, as Philippians says, that we need to grab both and support, knowing full well that the other person also would do the same for us. That's the perfect relationship, is when we know that we continue, if both of us continue to serve in a way that, as Philippians describes, that as long as we're meeting the needs of our friend, as long as we are meeting the needs of our spouse or our family member, that ours will also be met. What if we had that kind of trust and that understanding in all of our relationships, that anytime we feel like we've been wronged or it's not going the way we would like, the only thing we can control is ourselves. And so what if we say, you know what, if I have to, I'm going to roll both sides for a little bit. I'm going to put my interests aside and I'm going to serve here. And then when it doesn't go my way, I'm going to still serve here. And at some point, your boat will continue to move forward down the river. It will continue to progress instead of being shipwrecked on the shores. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to follow us each week, click here to subscribe. And if you want to take it a little bit further, click here for discussion materials.